Ladies and gentlemen, Age of Mythology Retold is about to be out, and I've gotten the opportunity thanks to the developers to record stuff a little bit early for you guys. So yeah, huge shout out to World's Edge. In this video, I'll be covering settings. You want to be able to have a smooth competitive experience? This video is for you. Right, let's go through all this stuff. I've got everything on the default settings, so this will be a little painful, but definitely beneficial in the long run. So for example, we've got right away here on the first screen, the frame rate limit at 60. Well, I've got a pretty decent computer, so I'm gonna bring that up all the way to 120. That's what I've seen in the beta. I can comfortably do while doing my multiple live streams, so that will apply to me. On your side, you're going to want to be testing that by enabling the Steam feature to display your frame rate, or you can use your graphics card driver to do the same thing. Vertical sync is a good idea to enable so that your screen doesn't tear. Now I'm on an RTX 4080, so I'll be pretty much maxing out all the settings here. It will say that it will cause some issues with performance potentially in the late game, but I haven't seen that to be the case. Foliage quality I will actually set to minimal, despite obviously being able to handle it. The game doesn't have very high requirements whatsoever, by the way. But foliage quality is an issue when it comes to the visibility of your farms in tall grass. So we're gonna keep that as minimal, even though it looks a little worse. The developers have got to do some work on this. Shadow quality can go mythical. I would put ray traced, but the thing is, it's actually not that big of a visual difference, and you get a little bit of extra frame rate as a result. You want to be able to maximize your frame rate, but you also want your game to not look potato, as I imagine you would want. At least I'm in that camp. Some people would want the maximized FPS in exchange for poor graphics. That's not me. Anti-aliasing, I found it's either gonna have to be temporal AA or none. What this does is make sure that edges of objects, such as, I don't know, spears, stuff that should be straight, when you view it at an angle, your monitor's pixels will make it look quite pixelated, right? So this is an anti-jagging technology essentially there. To make that a little bit smoother. So we'll apply that. I'll set it to none because I like the clean look. Anti-aliasing does cause a little bit of blur, so I'm trying to be pretty wary of that. Going to the game settings, we're looking at the panning speed. Click drag and arrow drag, as far as I'm concerned, can be smooth and slow. Click drag is what happens when you hold down your right mouse button. By default, we're going to actually rebind that hotkey later, but the screen edge panning at 5% is too slow to move around. I like 10%. Lock mouse to window. As a multi-monitor user, this is a must for sure. Default zoom level at 25% is probably fine to leave as is. You can change that if you want a broader look, but I think being relatively zoomed in to begin with does mean that you'll be able to micromanage your units better at the cost of having to move your camera around more. So you're going to want to find your own balance there. In my opinion, micro takes precedence over the overview, but that is just my personal preference there. Camera rotation to enable that is important, so leave it as is, because sometimes you will just have to turn your camera to see around the forest to properly order a villager onto the right tree. It's a little bit difficult to click on the top of the tree, so you want to click at the base of the tree normally. Camera acceleration, we don't need that. It would make it so that if you move your mouse to the edge of the screen, or just move with the arrow keys or whatever, that the camera would speed up over time. I think that's very difficult to keep in check, so no. Camera shake is fine, but probably don't need it if you really want the game to just be consistent and smooth and never misclick as a result. I don't think the camera shakes are that extreme in this, so it's fine. Edge scrolling enabled, we've talked about that before. That is definitely how you want to move around short distances, but you do want to click on the minimap for long distances. Toggle to issue work commands on mouse right click release instead of press down. Okay. So this would basically mean that you could left click to select a unit, right? And then right click to send it somewhere as an order Now, if you don't release that right click, if you keep it pressed down, it would not send the order, making it slightly slower. Every millisecond that you can gain from this is worth the disable. So definitely turn this off. You will be gaining several precious milliseconds between the press and release of the mouse button. I have no idea why they would enable that. I guess you can change your mind while you hold down the right mouse button. You should not be playing like that. Work on your mouse accuracy instead of relying on crutches like this. Camera drag invert direction, that doesn't matter too much unless you have this preference. This is holding right mouse button down, which again we will rebind. To move your camera around, you can invert the directions. I don't know, if you prefer it that way, then go for it. I only use this feature for spectating anyway. Repeating population limit notifications, you do want that so that you don't get housed as much. The game yells at you louder, you will notice it earlier. Allow input scheme switch. If you're using a controller, then fine. I've got my controller to the side, leaving it to other games. Yodesla is crying somewhere. Allow keyboard navigation. I'm going to turn this off, so I actually will show you what it does first. Basically, if I press my any keyboard button, then this interface will appear, and then you can navigate with key presses. I'm using Q and E right now to move around there. I don't need this. I have a mouse. I have 2 hands, therefore I will turn this off once I find it. It's also really awkward to use in multiplayer where a game ends and you're like trying to type GG in the chat, but you press enter and it takes you to the post-game screen and then you have to go back. Hella annoying, I don't want it. Immediately auto-queue villagers at game start. I would recommend this for the most part. Now, when I'm playing a deathmatch game, as Norse especially, I will probably want this disabled, but for the vast majority of everyone, you want to start a villager when the game begins. So just turn this on. Auto queue is the feature that makes your... see, it's using auto train and auto queue. No confusion, it's the same thing. Automatically creates villagers for you. And by enabling this, your first town center that you spawn with will train villagers automatically on repeat. And when you build a new one, it will do the same thing with these 2 settings enabled. So definitely leave that on. This even is a thing in ranked games, so there is automation, but military is not going to be the case. That has like a toggle in the search window that all sites have to agree on. Allow villager priority. I'm not going to be using this. This is one of those sort of AI helper features that make your villagers go and do stuff that you overall assign them to in a UI. We're not going to be using this. Manual is better. This feature is for absolute beginners. You have never played an RTS game, so we're talking about competitive settings right now. You do not need this. Do it yourself. It will be better than the AI walking across the map to mine the enemy gold mines that are heavily defended. Yeah, don't do that. One-click garrison, we don't need that. We're going to use Alt as the modifier key and then just right-click to garrison. You could remove the need here to just press Alt, but it doesn't really matter. I think it's more accurate to not do that. It allows you to drop off resources with villagers at garrisonable structures like town centers. So definitely keep it the way it is. Off. Easy military drag select. I do like that myself. It stops me from selecting villagers whenever I'm in my base defending myself, so I think that's great. What I do though is I use, once again, Alt to drag select my villagers specifically. So if I have villagers and army in the same place, I use Alt and drag a box over the area. That selects my villagers. My regular selection without Alt will select my military. I think that's great. That's what I'm trying to get used to at the moment. It's a new feature in Retold. Control left click is treated as double click. I will turn this on because I played a lot of StarCraft and a little bit of Warcraft, and I have this setting when I play Spellforce. I'm going to use this here. So what it does is if you have 10 hoplites and 10 toxotes, then you hold control and left click on the hoplites. It will select all the hoplites. You don't have to double click it, which is a harder thing to do in my opinion to get it accurately sorted out. I like the control click. It's just very, very nice overall. You got the villager double click behavior setting. Select villagers performing same action and idle is, I believe, the right setting to have as default. So good job on the devs. Then we've got the mouse walk paths. I think I'm gonna try this on, although I do wish it wouldn't always show the connection between the unit and the mouse. And for recording games, if you're a content creator like myself, you're gonna want this to be on. It will produce a lot of replays over the years, so make sure to keep an eye on it. But last 10 replays, I don't know. If you're playing a tournament, you're gonna have more than 10 games if you're going deep, so you're gonna want to keep that on. This is for 4K assets. I'm on 1440p, so I personally won't be doing it, but you could if you're on a 4K screen. Enable alternative HUD layout. That means that your resources will be next to your minimap rather than at the top of the screen. I'm not used to any game doing it at the top middle of the screen. I like it near the minimap, I like it in the bottom, so that's where I'll be putting it. Also, it makes the top layout a little bit smaller in general, so saves you a little bit of UI space. You can scale the HUD if you find it too big. You can scale it downwards only though. Full tooltip help is generally a good thing. You want to be able to learn all the stats and everything, so I think that's great. Build status messages you should definitely enable to see when stuff completes. You'll have a barrage of messages sadly when you make units, but it is worth it, especially for the early game benefits. Show hit points while units take damage, absolutely critical. You have to see the health status, save those weak units and pull them back. Show hit points while holding Alt. I think that's a good idea. It's not like critical, but the problem is that AOM doesn't have a system that shows damaged unit hit point bars forever. That would be ideal. That's not the case. You have to manually hold Alt to trigger such a state. It will also, however, show every unit that's not damaged with the health bar, so it's a little bit harder in this game to pick out what's damaged and what's not. I'd still recommend it. The mouse rollover, you can enable that as well. I don't think it's critical, but you can enable that. Once again, you will see all the health bars, whether they're full or not, which could lead to confusion there. Showing the global queue is essential. It shows what you're currently training in the interface. Advanced tech, definitely want to see that so that you can see the exact effects of your researches. Threshold snap to unit, I'm not entirely sure what this means. The description is terrible. Inverse control and shift. So I will turn this on because this is my own preference, coming from a StarCrafty background where control is typically meant for I want all of this stuff, whereas shift is like I want to add or remove stuff from my selection. Now that is what this will do here, but only in the unit selection UI. So when you select, like, again, the 10 hoplites and 10 toxotes, you will get 10 hoplites and 10 toxotes batched together as two icons in your UI, right? And when you click control on that now, it will pick the one you clicked only. And when you do shift, it will remove. Whereas a regular click will just focus between them. Overlay hotkey on icons. Yes, that's very important. It will basically show you what the hotkey for each thing is, such as when you want to train units or make buildings. That's essential. It's enabled by default. Leave it at that. Display attack range, single unit selection. I don't think that's necessary. I just use the hover and the alt settings so that we can see clearly how big those ranges are. I don't think it needs to always be on. It's just a lot of visual noise. Show site-based commands. I'm going to be disabling that. I'm not going to ask my mining camp to bring villagers to mine gold. I'm gonna select a villager and send the villager there, because then I have control over which villager is doing the task as opposed to the building choosing for me. So I'm gonna disable this. I'm gonna recommend that you disable this. Show age restricted commands. This is nice to see what else is coming up in the tech tree later down the line. You don't have to have this, but if you like that, if you're learning the game still, then this can be quite useful. I will keep it on because it helps me think ahead. Use combined ability menu. I will be disabling this. What it does is a completely unified interface of your selection, showing all the abilities that are available to the selection. But when it changes the positions of the abilities based on your selection changing, I think that's very confusing. And because of the same reason, I will disable the production menu combination as well. If I have two buildings selected and I add a third one, it will shuffle the hotkeys of the units. I'd rather just go through the buildings with tab. Well, tooltips, I'm going to be disabling this. I don't need the tooltips to tell me that a tree is in fact a tree. We're also going to want to reduce the world tooltip delay all the way to 0, because this will influence the delay that you get for the tooltips of relics. You see, you do want to see the effects immediately, and without this there will be a delay, so you'll be just hovering there and twiddling your thumbs waiting for things to happen. No, you want this to be instant. Now we're gonna be going through the hotkeys, and you know, generally speaking, they're pretty good. There's a bunch of nonsense in here though, which I'll be wanting to edit. So attack move on space is an absolute no-go for me. I put that on A. I think the current UI is pretty awful in this sense. We're gonna have to change several things to make this happen, like those. So I will allow conflicts for now, just so I can set it, and then we will turn the line formation stuff into some combo keys, I think. Attack move doesn't need an alternative hotkey for me. We're gonna change line formation to like Alt A, because the formations are they're really niche in terms of their usage. You don't super need them at all. You can click them honestly with how little you'll be using that. And a combo key is absolutely not a problem here. Again, the stances are once again similar. All right, the rest of this is pretty good. Norse Villager to Berserk does need a hotkey. Let's see if we can make that H. Yeah, these are good. What I don't like here is Patrol. I like that on like G or T, depending on the game. I'll be setting it to T in this one. I probably don't want to get a confirmation screen for deleting units. So I'll be unbinding these both and setting this to just normal delete, so that it just does the thing without having a confirmation window. Canceling all the queued items is going to be on backspace. That's a pretty big commitment to reach to backspace, but canceling all queued items is also a big commitment. As for the god powers, I don't believe you need those hotkeys at all. You'll be clicking them a few times in the entire game. So I'll be unbinding the hotkeys actually from the god powers. And I'll be using these F keys for better purposes. Find selection, I'll be putting on space, because I frequently roam the map while still having stuff selected, and it's just very convenient to be able to jump around. So for example, when I take my heroes to pick up relics, I typically use space to just jump back to the exact hero to be able to look at where it's going or if something happens. Menu interface hotkeys. This is actually something I will absolutely destroy right now. I'm gonna get rid of that, all that, because the F keys are prominent and easy to reach. We do want the score and game time to display. We could do like control keys for them. Control F10, control F11, control F12, and then we have freed up the F10 through 12 hotkeys should we ever find a use for them. It's just a good practice to have those available because they're at the top of your keyboard. But typically speaking, you want to be keeping your hands to the left side of the keyboard if you're right-handed, right? And now this is the interesting part, going to the idols. This is where I'll be wanting to use my function keys on the keyboard. So selecting all the idol villagers, definitely not shift period. That's absolutely ridiculous. I can reach it, but it's like kind of uncomfortable. So, unless you have a tiny keyboard or if you're a piano player, I would get rid of this and instead use the find idle villager groups, workers that are actually together, and I would put F1 on that. This is a highly important hotkey. You don't want to be idle, you don't want to be clicking the banner at all times. Rather just jump quickly and have your mouse ready at the center of the screen to move these guys. Then selecting all idle villagers if it should be necessary. If I have a shit ton of villagers going idle, then Shift F1 is easier to reach than Control F1 for sure. Which is why I made those menu buttons a little bit more obscure. But Shift F1 is definitely very easy to set up. You'll have to twist your wrist a bit, so, you know, hopefully it won't be bothering you too much. It doesn't bother me, but it might bother you. Then select all idle villagers. Alternative hotkey, we don't need that. We don't need those. Then idle fishing ships, less important by far. And the caravans are all separate. So we'll be nuking all this. and we'll be setting some separate hotkeys, but military being on the second key, I think is very important. Select all idle land military is the hotkey we are looking for when it comes to managing our idols military-wise. We don't want to select the guys that are already on the job, right? We want to use this prominent F2 hotkey to manage the idols, the guys that we forgot. Select all land military is, typically speaking, something I'd avoid using, but there are specific emergency situations, or you know, you suddenly gain a large army, like you could just click Ragnarok. You want everybody to focus on that target. Finding hero, I'm gonna use that as my F3, and selecting all heroes as my Shift F3, but I'll be typically control grouping these guys as well as my military. We got the same situation for warships. I think that's priority over the caravans and the fishing ships. So I'll be using my F4 for this, and similarly select all warships, Shift F4. Try not to use Alt F4. And then we go back to the fishing ships and caravans. I think caravans are going to happen more often than fishing ships, to be honest. There's a lot more land maps in general. So selecting all idle caravans as F5. You don't really care about the groups, because if they're idle, there's only one way to send them, to the furthest town center. Yeah, F5, we don't need a shift key at all. We don't need to select all caravans. Hotkey doesn't even exist anyway. See, you've got the fishing ship groups. The fishing ships will be quite spread out across the map, so focusing on the group rather than all idols is the way to go, I think. All right, so we've got all that. We still have the real estate for F7 and F8. It's not critical to use that. I'm gonna be using them to find a scout. Nah, I'm not. The scout is hotkeyed. It's on a control group probably. And once the initial phase of the game is over, where the map is already revealed to me, I'll be just putting that scout on auto scout. I don't care, or I'll be patrolling it or something like that between some key gold mines that I want to attack later. Finding Pharaoh, however, is a great hotkey. I'll be using that. F7. There we go. We don't have to use the find hero for this one. It will probably find the priests anyway when you're playing Egyptian. So yeah, having a separate one for your Pharaoh is great. You only have one of this guy until you get the Osiris tech, and then you've got the find building hotkeys. Those are fine. It's just whatever the hotkeys by default on the grid, and then control plus that. Oh yeah, at the beginning of this video, we actually created a conflict with building construction Norse, show military commands. So we gotta fix that now, because attack move is an A, like in every RTS game of all time. Devs, please do something. Anyways, show military commands. This search box is great, by the way. All right, so showing military commands for Norse units, as they'll be showing their building construction to be specific, we'll be setting that to Alt-A, because we don't need easy access to the military commands here. And then there's one more thing that I'd like you to do. Search for mouse here in the search box, and we're going to be changing move camera with mouse from the mouse to down, which is essentially your right click. We're going to change that to a middle mouse button, so that when you hold down your middle mouse button and move your mouse around, you can drag the screen with it. I really like this for spectating. You don't have to use it. If you don't want to use it, you can just unbind. But I think it's a really nice convenience feature. Now, I want to thank you for watching this whole thing. If you liked it, make sure to leave a thumbs up. Subscribe as well, because I'll be making a lot more guides. This is quite hardcore to start, but I think you have to get your settings right when you start playing a game. Next time, I'll be coming out with some fundamental guides to get your basics down.